David Farrant. Born 23rd of January 1946. Died 8th of April 2019. David Farrant, in his own voice, now follows.
And it was whilst in Bordeaux, France, that you met a 22-year-old Irish girl, Mary Oldham, who you were to bring back to England in April '67 and marry in the following August at St Joseph's Catholic Church.
Only because she was pregnant.
Due to her pending
Pregnancy.
and you had a full Catholic ceremony, did you?
Yes, St Joseph's Church.
At
her request.
Was there a full Catholic wedding with nuptial mass?
I was under considerable pressure.
But was there a nuptial mass?
Yes.
There was a nuptial mass.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Was there an apostolic delegation's papal blessing? Was there a blessing from the Pope?
No.
No papal.
But it was nevertheless a high mass.
Nuptial.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had a mass.
Mm.
That's quite important, actually.
Mm.
And Jamie was born during the following November. The first son.
Yeah.
In '67, you also inherited £6,000 in the January when you became 21.
Wait a minute. It was more than that.
More than that.
Yeah.
Considerably more.
It was stocks and shares. It was worth a lot. We came to about 11,000, I think. The whole lot together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no point going over before that time. That's all too early. You were given a shop as a wedding present by your father, and which you were to eventually leave in a debt of £3,000 to your stepmother, who went bankrupt in '68.
Well,
Well, this isn't terribly important.
no.
Is that accurate?
Not fairly, but it was her. It was because of her that the debt was incurred.
Yeah. You leased another shop, a baby boutique known as the Doll's House, and bought £1,700 worth of stock, which you gave to your wife, Mary Farrant, as
Yeah.
she now became.
Yeah.
This too went bankrupt the following year. Did it go bankrupt?
Yeah, that's right.
The following year.
Yeah.
And it was in August '69 that Mary Farrant gave birth to the second son, Danny. Is that right?
Yeah.
And 2 days after that event, she left Southampton, where her parents reside, taking both children with her, never to return, at least in the marital sense of the word.
Mm.
Were you evicted from that flat in Highgate that was above the Dalton?
Yeah.
You were evicted,
Yes, eventually. Yeah.
and that's when you took refuge in the cellar of a friend at 9 Priestwood Mansions, 294 Archway Road,
That's near enough accurate.
in the cold winter of '69-70. It was during those bleak months that the vampire phenomenon seemed to become or be made public.
Yeah.
You're on record in the Hampstead Highgate Express as encountering a vampire inside the cemetery gates late at night on the way home, which you treated as a joke. Then it happened again whilst you was hurrying home to your cellar on a winter's night. And you remembered a similar incident when it taking place the year you got married. It says you became a little frightened at first, then more interested. This is what prompted you to write to your local paper, the Hampstead Highgate Express, telling them what you had seen and asking for an explanation. Your letter, Ghostly Walks in Highgate, was followed by a deluge of letters from readers who also claimed to have witnessed a spook inside the gates of the cemetery. This led to an official investigation into the vampire. And you were subsequently visited in your cellar, which contained an old mattress and a few personal items from time to time. And your interest in the Highgate vampire seemed to grow. And you took it upon yourself to fulfill the ancient and approved method by which one might destroy the undead being. Was this so?
Yes.
Culminating on Friday, March 13th, 1970, when even warned publicly, both in the press and on the television at 6:05 on a programme called Today by the President of the British Occult Society, not to venture into the cemetery and stake the vampire. You still went ahead that same evening, as did many others who joined the mass vampire hunt in Highgate Cemetery. You remember that?
Alan Blood.
Alan Blood was the history teacher, was there, as were many cranks from all over the country with their homemade stakes, and many lookers-on and people who joined in. And what time was it? Would it be at midnight, wearing a cross and carrying a sharp stake? You entered the cemetery by climbing the wall.
I believe it was.
Earlier, Alan Blood had approached you to join forces with him in the Prince of Wales public house.
That's right.
And you turned him down.
Yeah.
And members of the Occult Society tried to get you to call it off, to quote the local newspaper, for your own safety. But you refused.
Many people were opposed to it, yeah.
Police were unable to control the increasing number of people at the cemetery gates, and what was to be a serious search by those professed to be vampire hunters turned out to be a night of chaos, as alarming numbers of youths, rowdies and cranks joined in amidst a blaze of publicity. So the first attempt to stake the vampire was a failure, but you were to try again 5 months later, this time in secret. And during the first week of August 1970, you felt the time had come for another attempt at the vampire. You were aware, were you, in that same month, of a group of members of the British Occult Society exorcising a Highgate tomb after the discovery of a headless charred body and signs of a satanic ceremony, reported on the back page of the Haunted Journal? You were aware of that?
I recall that report, yeah. I don't know when it was though.
That was at the time that you made your second attempt on the vampire.
Yeah.
It seems you'd also heard that Satanists were meeting in the cemetery at midnight. However, reasons best known to yourself, you went over the cemetery wall behind St Michael's Church the following Monday, August the 17th, armed with a wooden stake and a large cross, on which was inscribed a pentagram this time. And you went alone and unaided. You felt certain this time that you would encounter the undead being and presumably destroy it.
That is...
This is the second attempt in August 1970, August the 17th.
Yes, except there were other people there, but the police didn't apprehend them.
Well,
yeah, on that second attempt.
On the second attempt, there are other people in the cemetery.
Yes.
But were they with you?
Yes.
What, they went with you?
No, they didn't go with me, but I met them in there.
Who was that?
There were about 3 other people in there.
Who were they?
I don't think you knew them that time.
Well, they weren't newspaper men.
No.
As you crouched waiting for the supernatural being to emerge from its resting place, police searching for black magic devotees found you and arrested you. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You were then taken to the police station and questioned. First you said nothing, but then admitted that you had intended to drive your wooden stake through the heart of the vampire. Detective Sergeant Neville Brown told you to plead guilty, and you'd be allowed to go the following day.
Mm.
However, following morning you appeared at Clerkenwell and pleaded guilty, but you were not let go, but remanded in custody for reports.
Yeah.
How is it the people who were with you were not also taken and similarly charged?
The police didn't get them when they came in.
Well,
Remember, the police arrived in force. I think 2 cars came up, and they didn't arrive quietly. They shone great big flashlights.
But were the police aware that you were accompanied by anyone
I
else?
believe so.
But they didn't pursue.
They didn't really care the fact that they got me. They did in fact look. I think some of the police, they went after them. They chased them to the cemetery.
At Brixton Prison, you received visits, one from a member of the British Occult Society, the other from and I quote, a Barnet company director. You weren't, according to yourself, treated well in prison, both prisoners and staff making fun of you, and you were examined by 2 psychiatrists. One found you to be perfectly sane whilst the other had his reservations.
Correct.
It was whilst in jail that you changed your plea to not guilty, and the other visitor, that is to say not the Occult Society visitor, but the other visitor, stood bail for you.
Yeah, and there's one thing that's not quite accurate there. If you want to be accurate,
Yeah.
I changed my plea immediately that I was remanded in custody. I actually did it in the cells
In the cells.
because the police hadn't kept their part of the bargain.
Right.
They gave me the impression there would just be a fine and a bit of warning.
The mysterious Barnet company director whisked you off from the prison gates in his car to a rented house on Manor Road, High Barnet. Is that correct?
Yeah.
First, he wouldn't let you out of the house unless accompanied by himself. Then he let you leave in the morning to go to work as at Barnet General Hospital as a porter, so that you could pay him £3 a week board.
No, hang on a minute. Just let me think.
It's not terribly important.
No, I took. It isn't really important. I didn't find the job at Barnet General Hospital immediately. I took the job at Barnet, I think, mainly because of the sake of the court appearance.
Now, were you acting on your own, or with others, or were you're frequently described as a freelance vampire hunter at the time, ghost hunter and so forth? Were you in truth acting on your own, or were you acting with a group of others? These others that you mentioned were in the cemetery. I mean, were you part of another thing, or were you acting?
On some occasions alone, on many occasions with others.
And who were the others? I mean, not what were their names, but who were they? I mean, were they acting in a freelance capacity as well, or were they?
No, people involved in the occult.
Were they witches?
Some were.
Were they black magicians?
Some were, but we didn't discover, and I wasn't aware at the time that they were black magicians.
So you might have been in the company of Satanists without realising it yourself at the time? This is now, we're talking in terms of 1970.
Very possibly. Yes.
Ah. So, well, when did you learn that your accomplices on that and possibly other occasions might very possibly be Satanists?
Shortly after the time of the vampire ceremony.
What?
The vampire escapade.
Which one?
The second one.
In August?
Yeah.
1970. And what happened upon receipt of that knowledge? Did you then cease to meet these people?
No, that wouldn't be quite true to say that.
See, at the time you were living in dire poverty and degradation on a staple diet of cold fish and cups of tea in a freezing cold cellar, often visited by mice and insects, on a very damp mattress. What I want to establish is, how did you become a man with a mission? At that time the mission was to locate the undead tomb. And what were you doing getting involved with Satanists?
Involved isn't quite the right word. I don't regard, to me, no, magic is not necessarily black.
Well, in that same month, that is the
You see,
month...
people that you might define as Satanists would not be defined as wouldn't be defined as Satanists by myself.
Would anyone be defined as a Satanist by yourself?
Yes, I would say there are some people very, very, very extreme. I suppose you could call them Satanists. In that sense.
But you don't describe yourself as a Satanist?
I wouldn't describe myself one way or the other.
But you would object if others describe you as a Satanist?
I would object only because because of people's conception of the word Satanist. They might misconstrue.
What is your conception of the word Satanist?
My conception of the word Satanist is someone that completely, entirely dedicates not so much their lives, but their entire being to pursuit of evil, with the intention of using that evil to suit their own ends, to gain power, to influence other people.
And you regard yourself as not being in this category?
I have been involved with people who have been involved in that category, but what I'm saying is it doesn't necessarily mean that I am as such myself.
It doesn't necessarily mean that, but it also doesn't necessarily mean that you're otherwise either. In the same month that you were to climb for the second time over the wall of Highgate Cemetery, in fact within days of your being arrested and charged with being in an enclosed area for an unlawful purpose, a body was discovered which had been decapitated, and an attempt had been made to burn the remains.
Yes, I remember that. It was discovered, the one discovered by schoolgirls.
Yes. Would you consider that to be an act of diabolism, Satanism?
Yes, I would.
And,
of extreme Satanism, as we were discussing just now.
and obviously you would dissociate yourself with that sort of.
Well, when that particular incident occurred, I was in Spain.
So there is then an area which isn't simply loosely under the heading of magic. So you can distinguish between black and white magic.
Oh yes.
And that very positively comes under the black heading.
Yes.
So then you do agree there is a black side.
Oh
a
yes,
satanic
without
side.
doubt. I never denied that.
And which side of magic do you find yourself on?
I get the impression you're trying to make me admit something which you see, it's very difficult for me to
No, what
to
we're
come
trying
out
to,
and
what all we're trying to establish is on the spectrum of black and white and satanic and otherwise is whereabouts you fit. I mean, clearly, obviously, you're not simply a white witch, because white witches don't climb over cemetery walls and involve themselves in necromantic rites and ceremonies of any other kind.
well, I disagree with that to a certain extent, because really it depends what they are doing, doesn't it?
Exactly, and if witchcraft is to be white at all, it can't possibly involve midnight ceremonies in graveyards. Rarely do they take part in.
No, but they do choose deserted areas. But on the other hand, well, what's your
white
saying is that
white
as do black magicians.
Well, this is where the problem arises as to interpretation of white and black. Most, if not all, your rituals have occurred in lonely woods, lonely graveyards and deserted houses, and have reported to be blood sacrifices and even necromancy, that is,
Yes.
contacting the dead to learn secrets hidden from us at the present.
Yes.
That hardly comes under the category of white magic.
Well, I would disagree with that. If you define that as black,
Well,
so be it.
For example,
What I'm saying is that
the
I
spilling
don't.
of blood of a defenceless animal.
Yes, I don't define that as black magic.
So blood sacrifice is not, in your view, the black side of witchcraft.
No. Yes, you're correct. That's right.
So, if blood sacrifice and necromantic rites and contacting the dead in graveyards and so forth is not to be considered as black magic, where for you does black magic begin? When does it all become black?
Well, surely the Christian God demanded sacrifice.
Well, whether he did or not, that's a theological point which could be considered irrelevant.
Mm.
The question is, where for you does magic become black if it's permissible to sacrifice living creatures and to contact the dead and invade graveyards in night time?
The answer to that, quite simply, is it becomes black by the intentions of those that are practicing it.
But what possible intention could one have for slitting the throat of an animal, or for disturbing the quiet of the grave?
Well, surely you should know that blood plays a great part in magic. from magical ceremonies.
Yes, but I also know that those who spill blood would, by the majority of people, be considered black magicians.
Yes, that is true.
I know of no one calling themselves a white magician who uses blood sacrifice.
Well, again, we come back to your your definition of white.
Well, surely it might be an oversimplification, but basically, someone of good intention would not design to take the life of another creature for any ritual or ceremonial purpose. And someone who was of evil or malevolent intention wouldn't hesitate to do whatever they pleased, whether it was the taking of life or whatever dismay they might cause another living being.
Well,
I mean, that's the simple answer.
well, it's not.
Well, the simple answer is that a good witch, if there is such a thing, would not harm or injure another living creature.
Yeah, but this argument has arisen in the past.
And what was your answer then?
My answer is the same as it always has been. I mean, you can't. You can't.
How do you justify blood sacrifice?
How do you justify the killing of livestock for human consumption?
Well, that's for people to live.
Yeah, but as far as I'm concerned, that's where the hypocrisy comes into it.
Yes. So, how then do you justify holding meetings in graveyards to disturb the tranquility of the dead for ritual purposes of learning secrets of the future?
Well, I don't believe that you, wherever you conduct a ceremony of necromancy, I don't believe you are disturbing the dead.
Isn't the purpose of the necromancer to contact the dead?
The spirits. The
Yeah.
spirits of the dead, yeah.
Yes. To learn the secrets which perhaps they might now have being in the other world of what to us is the future.
Yes.
So aren't you in fact disturbing these spirits if they're there at all? Aren't you disturbing them?
No.
So you're not evoking any spirit.
Oh, yes.
Isn't that in itself a disturbance?
Well, surely you could say, isn't a medium who conducts a seance
Yeah,
disturbing
you
spirit?
could. And many mediums stand accused of that.
Well, in that respect, then I'm guilty. I do disturb people, yeah.
Do you and have you ever taken part in the raising of a demon or demons? Have you ever raised a demon?
Well, again,
I mean, you're on record, for example.
I really ought to say no comment to that, because what I say.
Well, you are on public record. For example, 1973, most of the national newspapers described you as attempting to, you promised to attempt to raise a demon on Hampstead Heath in April of that year.
Yes,
You were quoted directly.
Yes, I'm also.
And there are other occasions where you've gone on record as saying that you would raise a demon to destroy an opponent and so forth.
Yeah, I'm also on record as saying I would raise Pan.
Well, not necessarily any particular demon or devil, but have you and are you ever involved in demon raising, if not devil raising?
Well, you see, your conception of a devil or a demon might not be the same as mine is.
Well, what's your conception of a demon? I've yet to hear of a demon that was considered a friendly or a kindly spirit. One could describe a demon, I suppose, as the opposite side of the coin to an angel.
Yes.
But we've only heard you in respect to demon raising. So, granted that most people regard demons as evil and not particularly nice things, why would you want to embark at any time upon the raising of such evil entities?
Well, let me put it this way. In life, in everyday life, I would talk, if, for example, a man was a murderer, or evil as we regard him, it wouldn't stop me talking to him, or trying to or communicate with him.
So,
But that doesn't mean to say that I too am a murderer.
no, but so you don't deny then that you are and have been involved in the raising of demons.
By your conception and the public conception of that, I don't deny it.
Now, what is your present position? We're now in 1978. What is your present position in the hierarchy of British witchcraft?
It's unchanged. It's no different now than what it was before I went to prison.
Which is what? I mean, how do you regard yourself in the current hierarchy? I mean, what exactly are you? Are you simply a witch, or a vampire hunter, or a necromancer?
Well,
How are you to be described?
that's a very difficult question. I don't really know.
Do you work as an individual?
No.
Do you work as part of a group?
Yes.
Are you the leader of that group, or are you rank and file?
Of the group. Yes, the leader.
And what is
One of them.
What is the group's aims and purposes?
Well,
Is the group a witchcraft group?
yes.
So then the purpose is to pursue the religion of Wicca, or witchcraft.
Yes. That is one of the purposes, yes.
Are there other purposes?
Well, not just witchcraft, to pursue all forms of mysticism and other aspects of the occult.
These other aspects, could they possibly embrace what some of us might consider to be Satanism?
What some of us consider to be, yes. They could be interpreted like that.
Has your group, of which you hold the position high priest,
Yes.
is that your official title, or is there any other one?
Oh, there are other titles, but you're leading me on to something now.
But you are a proper, genuine high priest of witchcraft.
Yes, by initiation.
So you have passed through 3 degrees in the witchcraft code.
I have.
Who appointed you high priest?
Well, obviously a high priestess.
So there are other people involved whom you are protecting.
Yes.
How large is your group? Is it called a group, or a coven, or what?
It is very large.
Or an order?
Well, I'd be more correct, I think, to call it an order.
An order. So how large is your particular order?
Very, very large.
would you describe it in terms of tens or hundreds or thousands?
I think thousands would be more appropriate.
So you are
Scattered over the country, obviously not one particular area.
So we are now given to understand that you are high priest of an order of thousands of practicing pagans whose particular activity might by some be considered satanic.
Oh yes, yes.
As well as merely witchcraft, which by comparison could be considered to be quite harmless.
Yes.
So then you confess, do you not, to embarking and involving yourself with things which are considerably dangerous?
Yes.
And by some people's definition, diabolical.
By some people's definition, yes.
What do you hope to ultimately achieve, both you as an individual and your order as a group of, as you call it, thousands of individuals?
Well, I can't speak for other people that are involved in it.
But you are their elected representative. You are their leader.
I can give you my own views on that if you wish. Supreme eventual supreme knowledge of various.
What do you hope to do with this supreme knowledge once having acquired it? Have you any designs upon affecting the way society is run, or the country generally is? If you're unhappy with, for example, the Christian religion in this and other countries, have you any desires to alter that? And if you wish to become an established religion?
Oh yes, certainly. I don't. To me, the Christian religion is steeped in hypocrisy, and I think it's inevitable that it will be altered. It's just a matter of time.
You see yourself in opposition to the Christian church and churches?
I think it'd be more true to say that the churches see me in opposition to them.
But do you?
As their policies stand at the moment, yes.
So you're in battle with the churches in a way. You're at war with the churches in a sense, because obviously they disapprove intensely the things you do, and you don't seem to like what they do.
Well, I'm at war with the hypocrisy of the churches.
But not with the churches themselves.
No.
So you don't necessarily wish to see them removed.
I'd like to see them changed.
Changed to what?
Well, quite simply to be devoid of hypocritical, man-made assumptions and such like.
But don't you believe that they have the right to express their beliefs and faith and opinion on matters as much as anyone else?
No, I don't, because I don't believe that they express the religious truths.
But surely they follow their leader, Christ, as much as you follow whomsoever it is you believe.
Well, I would have said it more likely to say that they follow their leader as the Pope,
But
who's only a human being.
well, that only applies to the Roman Church, and he is regarded as the vicar of Christ on this earth, according to them. But that surely is only the Roman Church, and that's not the established church in this country. The established church is the Anglican Church, the Church of England.
I still maintain that they are equally guilty of the same thing.
which is?
They follow the doctrines of their religious leaders.
Yes, who are surely trying to put into action the
Ah,
word of Christ.
exactly. Where I would disagree with you, because I don't believe that they try to put anything into action except just to suit their own ends.
If they're
I mean,
spiritual-
it's fair for me to add there. I'm talking generally. I'm not for 1 minute saying that every individual.
No, but if their spiritual Godhead is Jesus Christ, and that is ultimately who they pray, whose example they follow, and who they worship, they're subject to worship, as their divine master. Who, in the case of your particular beliefs, religion and cult, do you likewise worship and follow, and whose example you tread in the footsteps of?
Well, I follow the divine, I would say divine occult laws.
But surely the laws, the principles vary from order to order and from cult to cult. Witchcraft
Yes.
is surely the religion, a pagan religion.
Yes, exactly.
And as a religion, it has, does it not, gods and goddesses?
Yes, of course they vary.
I mean, there are such things, are there not, as Christian occultists?
Oh yes,
And you don't consider yourself naturalist?
but the ultimate belief doesn't change.
Well, surely a Christian occultist will have different ideas, beliefs and designs to, for example, a witch. And then again, different again to a Satanist.
Yes.
So there you do have a conflict of belief and of opinion and of ultimate reality.
Surely I could answer that by saying that we are in a position to be a much better position to be able to assess the truth by the very fact of
Who is we?
when I say we, I refer to not only members of our order, but people connected with witchcraft and mysticism all over the world.
Yes, but your order in particular, who do they worship? When they perform high rituals or whatever, to whom is it they are making their blood sacrifice?
Blood sacrifices aren't always made to the supreme deity.
But when they are made, who is your deity?
Well, they can be made to different deities, but
Who ultimately do you worship? Who ultimately is your the spiritual head of your cult?
well, quite simply the Lord of the universe,
Who is?
whose name must remain secret. His proper name.
Would it be Beelzebub?
No.
Who is the Lord of the universe in terms that the ordinary person would understand, in your view?
I don't think the ordinary person would understand it.
But surely there must be a name, or names, that have lasted down the ages that would give some idea as to what you mean.
Well,
Would Lucifer be an accurate description?
Lucifer, we accept Lucifer, yes.
You do accept Lucifer
Oh, yes.
as someone whom you worship.
Lucifer was
So, Lucifer is a deity to whom you pay homage. Or, is that right?
He's one of the deities that we would pay homage to, yes.
But not Beelzebub.
No.
How would you describe your present activities?
Very, very difficult for me to do that, as a matter of fact, because of the public outcry caused by the press bringing to light certain things which I was involved in, I've now gone, everything we do is extremely secretive. We don't come out in the open any longer, at least not at this present stage in time.
And this is due to the press exposing past activities.
It's due to the press's interpretation of past activities.
But were they fundamentally correct when they said that you went to Highgate Wood or Highgate Cemetery or somewhere like that to, for example, sacrifice a cat in a demon-raising ceremony?
Well,
Or was that totally a tissue of journalistic invention?
I believe what happened there was that, if I'm correct, on that occasion, was not the body of the cat discovered.
Are you now saying that you have never sacrificed a cat?
No, I'm just trying to get the occasions in their proper perspective.
Well, is there any occasion where you've sacrificed a cat or any other living creature?
Well, on occasion I've been present at ceremonies where sacrifice has been performed.
Have you performed these sacrifices? Have you at any time performed a sacrifice?
I believe on one occasion I did perform a sacrifice.
Only on one occasion?
I will say one occasion, yes.
And on that occasion, what was it the sacrifice of?
It was of a cat.
And the purpose of sacrificing that cat was what?
Well, the purpose. Is there any point in telling you? Would you understand the purpose?
Well, very quickly. What was the idea of slitting the cat's throat?
It was necessary for the proper successful fulfilment of that particular ritual.
Yes, the ritual's attainment was. What were you hoping to attain through that ritual?
A contact with a supreme higher deity.
And what was the name of that deity?
That I can't tell you. But this particular deity demanded sacrifice. It demanded the spilling of blood from a living creature.
How do you know that it demanded the spilling of blood?
Well, obviously, in my position, one has to know these things. It's a matter of.
But upon what information were you acting?
Well, obviously, on the information of the particular ritual.
So there is a ritual written somewhere.
Oh yes.
And it's upon that written information.
Yes.
But there are
not
many.
only written, but passed down by word of mouth.
By word of mouth.
Yes, and it is also in written form.
But there are many witches practicing today throughout this and other countries who have substituted both sacrifice and other rituals.
They have not got the courage of their convictions. They have not got the courage
But they say
what they believe
it's no
in.
longer necessary.
Well, I would disagree with that.
And they say
One can't go into magic.
the only people who pursue such barbaric activity are diabolical and satanic indeed.
I suppose you might be referring to that insignificant little flea, Alex Saunders, or his even more insignificant little flea, Maxine Saunders.
Are these people with whom you feel a particular animosity?
I feel nothing towards them whatsoever. To me, they're totally insignificant. They don't represent anything that to me is true or fundamental. They just represent complete showmanship. I believe money's been involved in the past. They have no genuine concern for the true spiritual beliefs of people that go to them. And believe me, I'm talking from experience. I'm talking from people that have actually sent down there into their camp, so to speak, and have come back to me with all this information. Quite a large dossier on Maxine Saunders and Alex Saunders. Not very impressive.
But would you not admit that both Alex and Maxine Saunders have in the past done much to spread the word of witchcraft and to contact many interested people with a living form of witchcraft, whether you agree with it or not?
No, because the living form of witchcraft or Wicca has always been there. It's only a question of people seeking it out.
And you accuse these two people of employing showmanship and publicity.
Well, may I just say that when you mentioned other witches, that they were the two that immediately sprang to my mind. I don't know if you were thinking of anybody else.
No, I was thinking of nobody in particular.
Well, let me say in their case, most definitely yes, along with some other people.
Well, what other people?
Well, there are other people too involved in it that aren't genuine or serious.
So you're saying that Maxine Saunders and Alex Saunders are not genuine?
Yes, I'm definitely saying that.
Not genuine because they're involved in publicity and
Not-
showmanship.
More than that.
But-
More than that.
Would it not be true to say that you have been involved in a certain amount of publicity yourself?
It would be true, but then you must remember that the only reason the publicity first arose was because of the police arrested me. Now, if you're saying that I invited publicity, you're also saying that I wanted to be taken to court and sent to jail for 3 years, because that was the only thing which attracted the publicity.
But wasn't it a long...
Continual police harassment.
But wasn't it a long spate of publicity over many months and years that eventually attracted the police to your headquarters? Wasn't it through the local and national newspapers continually mentioning your name in connection with midnight rituals and graveyards that brought you
Not quite.
the attention of
Yes,
authorities?
yes, but not on the serious occasions that I'm talking about. All the serious publicity arose from the actions the police first took. Of course the police got a lot of their information from papers, but that information on its own was comparatively harmless.
So long before the police ever raided you and the commencement of the witchcraft trials at the Old Bailey, long before that you had been the subject of publicity, both in the national and local newspapers for a good many years.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. But only as a result of what I was involved in.
But how...
Obviously it's the privilege of
But surely
newspapers.
there are many witches and so on and so forth who go about their witchcraft and their particular beliefs without the authorities and, for that matter, the general public ever hearing about it.
Well, as did I. I mean, why did the public hear about it? I mean,
Surely the public can only hear about it if you consent to interviews by the media and in fact go along with journalists who wish to obviously make reports of these matters.
This happens all the time, not just people involved in witchcraft. Journalists always approach people involved in topics of public interest.
Yes, but that doesn't mean to say that somebody involved in a secret art would wish to give them the time of day if they wish to keep their art secret.
Well, I often haven't regarding the real secret art. I mean, we're talking now about
So what they have been...
matters of public knowledge.
So what they have reported then hasn't been anything of any significance?
Well, no, it's been of significance. It hasn't always been totally accurate. It's been as they
But
want to see.
fundamentally accurate.
Fundamentally, perhaps, yes. Yes, that the superficial name was the Order of the Black Moon.
That's the official order.
That was
name.
the superficial name. It's not.
That's the superficial name.
Yes.
The Order of the
Black Moon.
Of the Black Moon. What is the non-superficial?
No, I can't disclose that because it's we have a secret name to the order.
You have a secret name.
Yes.
Which cannot be disclosed, but the name which can be disclosed is Black Moon.
Yes.
So you would, superficially at least, be described, am I right, as the High Priest of the Order of the Black Moon?
I could be described as that, yes.
It would be, superficially at least, correct to do so?
Yes.
Are you anything besides a priest in this, this pagan religion?
Not other than that, no.
So you are a mediator between the worshippers and the worshipped?
Yes.
And do you work with a high priestess?
Yes. On most occasions.
What's her particular?
Well, I already declined to name her before, except to say that she's...
Is it the same person each time, or...?
No, but... Not necessarily, but the person that I'm referring to, who is the official high priestess of our order, of course is.
Does she hold a higher position than you, or is she subservient?
No, equal.
It's equal.
Yeah.
Yet there are some groups within witchcraft who have a high regard for the high priestess. They regard her as the superior of the two, and that the high priest is subordinate to the high priest.
That's not strictly... Yeah, what you're saying is true, but the actual... that belief is ill-founded. That only arises because of... Well, obviously, I'm telling you the obvious, because of the witch's belief in the feminine principle from which everything was created.
Do you not follow that?
No. We believe in...
We? Who is we?
When I say we, I'm always referring to members of the order.
The Order of the Black Moon?
Yes.
So the Order of the Black Moon believes...
We lay emphasis on that the...
What's the principle if you don't believe, for example, in the feminine principle?
Oh, we do.
You do?
We also believe in a masculine principle. We believe that the two are of equal importance.
The two are of equal importance?
Yeah.
So what is the underlying principle of your order with regard to its belief and worship?
I don't quite understand that. The question, I think I understand it. It's very general. I mean, how would you expect me to answer that?
Well, what is the driving force, the motivation?
Recognition of two supreme deities, I suppose.
Two supreme deities?
Yes.
And these are?
Well, I couldn't name them.
You couldn't name them?
I could, but I wouldn't be allowed to name them to you.
Allowed by whom, if you are the head of the order?
Allowed by tradition, allowed by the very ingredients which have led to my position.
You have been involved in the past in various duels and opposition with heads of other organisations who don't always find themselves in an agreement with you. Does this rivalry still exist?
As far as I'm concerned, it must exist if people continue to attack me all the time, and not to leave me in peace to carry on with not only me but the people I'm responsible for, to carry on with what they want to do, which after all is not really harming anybody. Then of course the rivalry will exist.
Could it not be that these people have spoken out and sometimes acted because they felt you were abusing the very subject which you believe to...
By their standards, perhaps that is true. Perhaps by their standards I was abusing something, but that does not give them the right to actually interfere and to try and prevent me from practicing what I believe in.
Or maybe these people believe that what you were doing was particularly harmful, not only to the sacrificed animal, but to many people who were reading about it in their newspaper, and who would be influenced by your activities, and also, as well as the gullible, the nervous and the frightened, who would be very upset reading of some of your past activities. Could it not be that the heads of other occult organisations took you up on this?
Well, perhaps they were so motivated, I don't deny that, but again I say to you that does not give them the right, because I would take issue with you that any harm was done.
By their definition that you were and are harmful.
Well, I can only answer that by saying quite simply we don't accept their definition.
Yes, well, the criminal might easily say that he doesn't accept the law's definition, and that's why he performs his particular crime. But the law is the law, and surely could not occultists who have differing views to yours argue the same thing, that the occult law is the occult law and that you're breaking it?
Well,
because you have many enemies and many people who take exception to what you say and do.
Well, the first point is, of course, that contrary to popular belief, I'm not a criminal, but I do not believe, I sincerely do not believe that we are violating any occult law. Or if we are, then surely under occult law the only people that would suffer are ourselves. I mean, the interference of other people saying what they believe is right, albeit the fact that they're perhaps well motivated, does not give them the right to physically interfere, openly condemn what they don't understand, and I maintain that they don't understand. I mean, the very fact that they continually accuse me of being a Satanist, by their definition.
Don't you think the time arrives when people, well-intentioned people, feel that enough is enough, and that to turn the other cheek and to suffer in silence can only be good for so long, and there comes a time, there comes a moment when they have to stand firm and say, we are not prepared to allow this sacrilegious activity to continue?
I totally disagree with that. I still say that they have no right to do that. We don't get up and say, attack them for what they're doing, or what beliefs they spread, or what they practice. Even if perhaps you'd answer that they're not harmful, even if they were harmful, we believe that everybody's entitled to do what they believe is right.
Well, maybe they believe that is right, and that's why they're doing it. Maybe that's the very reason they're taking action against you, is because that is what they believe to be the right thing to do. And
I note you say they're taking action. I would add that they'd be very ill-advised to attempt anything of that nature, because we are well versed in being able to deal with people that try and interfere with what we believe in.
What then would happen to anyone who was to disagree with you in that respect?
Well, that depends exactly. Nothing would happen unless they actively try to prevent, to stop what we were involved in.
And if they attempted that, what then would happen?
Well, under the provisions laid down in our beliefs, we are entitled to take action to protect our beliefs.
What sort of action do you have in mind?
Well, there is ways of protecting beliefs, and obviously this involves the involves certain forms of ritual.
And what would be a result of that?
Depending on how serious the harassment was, it could ultimately be permanent silence, meaning that person would either be, you see, I hesitate to say this because it can sound very vindictive, but it could mean that the power set into motion would fulfill their obligation.
Have you ever taken such action?
Taken action in the past to protect what we believe in, yes.
Who have you taken action against?
Well, you're asking me to say, you see, again, this is very confidential. I can't possibly tell you this at the moment.
What was the result?
It did, in fact, silence the persons concerned who were trying to harass us. I would add, though, that on another occasion, there are, without, again, I don't wish to name names, certain other people who've been causing us great concern in the past.
Who are these?
One of them I was once meant to have a duel with, and luckily for him, the actual thing never materialised properly.
Why didn't it materialise properly?
Because of the conditions at that time.
Which were?
It wouldn't have been safe for me to have appeared where the duel was supposed to have taken place.
But wasn't that an arrangement that had been mutually agreed?
Yes, but then I could not foresee what would incur since the agreement. People were literally out in thousands. And
what would have happened then had you have actually turned up?
at that time I literally took legal advice on this, and I was advised very strongly against turning up because of threats to my own safety.
By whom?
By the mob.
What mob?
The mob that had appeared to witness the duel.
But you would have had no prior knowledge of such a crowd.
I did have prior knowledge of it. Most definitely, I did have prior knowledge of it.
Have there been any subsequent duels?
Yeah. This is an area which I don't really wish to discuss because, well, I just can't discuss that at the moment.